is um, an example of what, given, well, we can go through these and see if there's any obvious things that are wrong.
Right.
But then, if I can come away with this with a clear idea about the JSON requests backwards and forwards, and then start writing those. So that's the next step. Yeah. I'm doing this thing where I'm trying to peer down my. Yeah. There you go. That's the first one. Is that big enough? Zoom in. That's better. Oh, by the way, throughout this terminology, paymaster, I apologize. I forgot about thanker as a name.
Okay.
I remember at the last moment, but I didn't go back through.
Yeah, because paper.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Yeah. Okay, so this loop I'll talk about in a second, but in essence, it's the how loop with guardian, ruler, etc. Then we've got digital loop, stuck loop, and so on. We've talked about this. This is just the high level. What are the groupings of AI nodes that are talking to each other?
Right.
I think this is pretty much uncontroversial because we kind of settled on this a couple of days ago. I'll give you a second because you just got these. See if there's anything that screams out, and then I'll go into the how.
So a good name for what the court loop does is generative attribution.
That is better than court. Courts did sound a bit scary. Generative attribution. We were looking for what was it? Names that follow the thing. It's like pronoun, noun, verb, isn't it? It's
oh,
like
right. So you need like a thing. Okay, well, what's a name for that captures the adversarial nature and the generative AI nature of that operation? Those are two crucial aspects to it.
Yeah, the adversarial nature is an interesting one. It's the it's almost like an argument here.
Yeah.
It goes on, right?
The arguer?
Sure the arguer, yeah. It's
the arguer, and then does it produce arguments? Yeah, what the fuck?
Hey, you're back.
I'm sorry, my Horizon Workrooms thing just crashed.
I've been having this morning when it came on. First of all, to prep up, my Quest completely borked out.
I think there'll be a big update coming out soon. The OpenAI API is back full on, and they reckon they've fully mitigated the issue, and its response times are beautiful now.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that's been a pain in the arse. Okay, so yes, let's go with arguer, argument, and argue, or
I don't know.
Arguer.
I like the court.
My feeling is we can figure this out later after I get the juice on.
Yeah, sure. Sure, okay.
Okay, so that's the top level. We've got the Dave and How cycle that includes the intent, the guardian, the ruler about how you want to present it back. Presentation layer, and this jitter request is kicked off by How when he decides you're actually asking for something to happen. You're asking for a jitter here, and the jitter loop is the thing that serves up the jitter, and then there's this jitter use. I'm not entirely sure where that should go from HAL to Thanker, but we need some way of recognizing that a jitter was asked for and it was provided, and therefore something's owed.
Yep. Stuck library. Are we going to separate out a stuck and the solution to the stuck?
Yes, I think so. We're thinking a lot about this.
So that's not a stuck library. That's a help library.
Yes. Yeah, this is useful Lego bricks.
Yeah, but okay, so there's something else that I'm not sure about, and I'm not sure if there's any point in changing the diagram now, but I want to make you aware of how it appears like the programming is going. Is that first of all, the first step is goaling. Goaling is what's used to discover jitters, because you need to look for jitters that have similar goals. A stuck is a goal that could not be met. And so looking for help should be found in two steps. Generate the goal, search for similar goals, find the help that solved those similar goals. Otherwise, it seems too hard a step to go straight from, like, what do I even search for if all I've got is a goal? How do I search for relevant help?
The goal is crucial for that. It's the intent. So, I mean, thinking about it, this intent, but it's the same as the goal. It's what does Dave want? And that's quite rich information to be passed over, because you've got the session to pass over, saying really what there's not been a goal switch, so all that session is what Dave really wants, and that probably can be dealt with locally. It only goes to stuck loop. Stuck loops are not goals.
They're what comes after goals, though. If you can't meet a goal, a stuck is a goal that hasn't been solved.
Right. There's a fraction of fragment here, isn't there? So
It's almost like a three-part thing where you've got on the one hand you got goal over here, and then you got a stuck is sort of the thing that embodies what could be many goals that were unsatisfied, and the stuck is the commonality between all those unmet goals. And then there's help that is supplied to the stuck, which can be many different forms of help that are supplied to the stuck. Each goal may have an affiliation with multiple stucks as well, so there's that sort of many to many relationship going on there.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. We think about so.
Am I clear? Like my point was that I can't really look up helps directly. I can only look up helps by looking up stucks, by looking up goals.
The goal here, I don't think that's right, but let me talk through it.
Yeah.
The goal here can be resolved by a jitter. So we've got session. Okay, so what you want to know is whether it's snowing in Kincardine. The jitter is, let's get some forecast data. That jitter includes API calls out to weather forecasts and so on, anything that's known to this. If the goal is, I would like to know how many footprints are in Kincardine, given that it's snowing, that's something that's like we've no idea about. So this is where it's like, okay, if I can't solve this locally, I can try and solve this by looking at the wider address space
Yes.
of all
How are you going to
resolved
search that,
addresses.
though? What's your search query going to be, as an example?
Well, I'm thinking this is some kind, and this might take a bit of time. Most of it should be solved up here, but this might make a bit of time. But there needs to be some kind of indexing. We can go into the
Yeah,
stock
but
library sheet in a second. But
what are you going to index against?
you're going to index against the part of the jitter that couldn't be immediately resolved.
You mean a stuck?
It's not necessarily a stuck yet. It's just that it's not something you can just do
Well,
locally.
just because it's not like what makes a stuck that if I'm in here locally whizzing around and I'm like, oh, I'm stuck. Why is that not a stuck? Just because it's got a solution somewhere out there that I don't know about doesn't mean that it isn't a stuck right now.
Okay. Yeah, okay. No, that works. So, be calling this a stock library.
That's really the help.
Yeah, so that's help, as in, okay, so we go through, try and solve it locally, can't solve it locally, and the search thing is, I think, a difficult problem. Let's talk about that later.
No, I don't think it's difficult. It's difficult if you try and do it directly. But if you go jitter attempt into stuck into similar stucks, and then similar stucks into helps, then you've got everything. That's how you're going to find it the fastest. Going into the stuck loop is actually, there is a library of stucks, but there's also a library of helps.
Isn't that basically what we've got there? So we could rearrange this and move this box up here.
Not really, because where would you? We just agreed that we were going to separate the help from the stuck.
Yeah. So these are nuggets of things that can help.
Right. So you could basically explode this out to have the help library out here, and then keep everything else the same. But the help library sends back to the jitter if there is something that it's found.
Yep.
But if it, yes, okay, so you go jitter loop, stuck library, and then if you can find it, you go help library and then back. But if you can't find it, you go stuck loop, and then round and round and round and round and round, and then one day, help library and then back.
Yeah. If I was to rename stuck library help library, that's essentially that same loop.
Well, no, because you still need a stuck library as a separate thing.
Now you're talking about the record of unsolved stucks.
No, I'm talking about the record of all stucks, solved and unsolved.
Okay.
The only reason I'm saying that is because it appears like goaling and stucks are very closely related, and so to look up a solution for any goal that you might come up with, you need to search for all the stucks, because that's how the information will be indexed in a potentially limitless search space.
Okay, so if we were to go from, so the stuck library is the combination of helps and unresolved stucks, is it? Is that what you're saying?
No. The stuck library is a list of all stucks, both solved and unsolved. If I walk that library, I can get a pointer, or I can get a group or cluster of stucks that match the goal that I want here, provided that the definition of a stuck is a high quality goal that has not been met.
Okay, so this is a collection of all stucks, whether resolved or not.
Correct. I then search to get a clustering of ones that are similar to my one that I wasn't able to solve locally. Of that group, I pray that some were resolved, in which case they will point me to the help library, and I will begin using...
Oh, I see. So in this diagram, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So there's a repository of easy easy to use and ingests helps
Yeah. But help can't be
places.
accessed directly because you can't cluster for it. Like, if all I've got is the problem, how do I know where to find the solution? It's got to be indexed by
Oh,
problem.
right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Makes
Okay.
sense, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes
Um,
goaling even fucking cooler. Like, goaling has rapidly become the coolest thing that we've been working on in a while.
it has been actually. That context switch is very. It's the. I don't know. It makes it feel, if it works, very close to AGI because you're not polluting the stream.
That's right. That's right. You're not crossing streams.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just trying to guess what you're doing. That's all.
Oh no, I was having a drink of coffee.
That's
Uh,
God. That's. I was not. I was like, is he unwrapping bubble gum? Yeah, it's funny. It's funny trying to guess. Okay, so I think you get my point about the goaling. Goaling and stucks are incredibly tightly bound. Like, they should be so tightly bound that they are a derived thing. Like, a stuck wraps around a goal.
a goal can incorporate many stucks, though.
When a goal becomes stuck, we don't know if it is one stuck or many stucks within it. So you got to start with making it one stuck. The
Yes.
same. The same. May I please get this bit
Yeah.
out? I think this is
Oh, yeah.
actually very important. This bit. The
Yeah.
exact same atomization of goaling applies to stucking. It's the same fucking process. You must have a focused goal, or it should have been broken apart into many. Therefore, stucks have that same requirement. I think that stucks and goals are really the two sides of the same object.
Yes. So long as we're talking about, we can have high level goals
You can have high
that
level
can be
stucks.
met. Yep, which can be met by multiple stucks in order to bring them together into a jitter and do something useful.
Met by the help which was supplied to the stucks.
Yes.
It's
So, for
not the
example,
stuck itself.
I think we're okay. So let me talk through this. So a jitter might have, in order to provide a jitter, you might need three things to happen. Uh, your location, your weather, and your size of shoes. Um, this jitter loop is trying to do all three. If it can't do all three, then let's do two, and then apologize for having not done the third. The third one is something that can be resolved later on, but it won't be resolved later on because you need the jitter. So you've got one goal, and then jitter loop um, fragments it into three goals, and perhaps one of those goals is partially solved already and can be fragmented further in order to ultimately give the side a shoe back. But that fragmentation is really important. So when we're talking about goal, it's sounding like you're saying that a goal is the original intent of Dave. The intent of Dave is important because that's the overall goal, but it should be that the jitter loop fractions that into various levels, some of which can be solved with helps, some of which can't be solved.
Yeah, but there's still to take a goal and to atomize it is still to do goaling, and we're still gonna, Dave can come in with a bunch of goals. We're gonna break it down and present it back to him because you just simply can't swallow big goals in one shot. It must be atomized, and so we're gonna walk Dave
Yeah.
through one goal at a time. We're gonna try and achieve each of the goals in sequence or in parallel where it permits, but we are going to surface to Dave the atomization of the goal that he just laid out. Like if he's like, retake the Falklands, Hal's going to be like, whoa, hang on a second there. And
well, so, yeah, that's a brilliant example. Yeah, exactly. We take the Vulcans. Okay. And
okay,
then
Dave.
it's like I'll be right back.
Right, I'll be right back. Get your credit card out. Make sure there's lots of credits in OpenAI. This is going to be expensive.
Exactly, and that cascade. I think maybe we can collapse. I think your thought that a goal and stuck are basically the same thing.
I
Looking
think
at
they're
it
the
from
same.
different directions is important.
I think they're the same. They're the same sort of header information, but it only really gets promoted to a stuck when we recognize that we can't solve it locally or with generative AI being flamboyant or innovative in its own little loop, and it's like, well, that's a stuck. But
Yeah.
it's the same information. It's a goal, and then it becomes a stuck because I couldn't meet that goal. That's the only difference.
Now here's a question. In the same manner, is a jitter just uh, essentially a response to a goal?
A jitter is a solution to a goal. Yes, but
Or maybe
it's it's
it might be a
presented.
partial solution. So yeah, it's
Yeah, but
right.
it's a jitter in my mind is the presentation or assemblage of a collection of helps that meet the goal and the sub goals. The jitter is the package or the compilation, the assembly of the various help that was found to meet the goal and sub goals presented back to Dave, because
Yeah,
jitters are in Dave land.
yeah, yeah,
Goals are the bridge between Dave and Hal, and helps are purely in goal land, which is on Hal's side of the fence. So the
yeah.
helps can be many helps can be assembled to make what appears to be a simple jitter from Dave's point of view, but Hal takes care of all that for him.
Right. Okay. I think we can collapse the namespace, but
Yeah.
let's come back to that in a second because let's run through what a simple jitter request and response
Mm-hmm.
looks like.
Okay.
So Hal gets understands what Dave is trying to do, like after probably number of prompt responses and so on. Okay, so you want the weather in concordant.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Weather and concordant.
okay, yeah. So jitter loop. It's going to look for practically speaking an API call out to a weather service.
Correct. So it's gonna say goal, get the weather, sub goal in concordant.
Is that a sub goal? It's the goal is to get the weather in concordant. The concordant is
The first
property
thing, you're gonna
request.
do is you're gonna get the weather anywhere at all, and then you're gonna try and scope that down to get it in concordant.
Isn't it? And thinking about this in terms of a JSON request, isn't it going to be? Do I know about an API call to a weather service?
Yeah,
Yes, that's the first step.
yeah.
Second step is okay. Here's some JSON that includes concordant as its request. So I don't need to get
Sort
through
of.
all the
So
weather
yeah,
stuff.
it'll be like, do we even know, what is weather? Do we have an API for it?
Yeah,
Is the request something we need to go external for? All that kind of stuff. And then once you've
yeah,
found that, then the next step is, okay, does this one or any of the other 10 that I found service concordant?
right,
And
right.
it
And
might
so
be
there's
it might be
yeah.
even broken down even further. It might be like, what the fuck is a concordant? And then it's like it's got a bunch of stuff to do, right? It's like I've never
Yeah,
heard that word before.
yeah. So so in that simple thing, how do we index in the jitter loop that we've got an API call number one, so we know what weather is. And then when we're going out on the API call, we need to understand what the schema is in order to get the weather back for Kincardine.
Mm.
Um, how's that indexing done?
That would be, so you would go and look up for a previous stuck that had that weather aspect about it.
Mm-hmm.
It would contain within it instructions on how to format your request, how to make the request. Basically, would be included in the help that arrived for the stuck.
Right,
And so
right.
that in this particular case, I as a developer would be like, I'll bet that this guy wants to know the weather, and I would make a goal. I'd be like, hey, I want to make a stuck to solve. The goal is fetch the weather, and then Hal's like tries to do it and is like, oh yep, no, I don't know how to do that. And you're like, great, okay, so now a stuck is formed. Then I go and do some coding, and I'm like, okay, here's some help for that stuck. If you get stuck trying to get the weather, you make this function call to this address, and it will give you back data that has this shape. You will
Mm-hmm.
then see that this is how you tell the weather, and if you want to know a particular suburb, you find it in this way, right? Now, if you just
Yeah,
grant me another 2 minutes grace, I'll
yeah,
follow on with the
yeah,
second
yeah.
scoping, which is concardant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's sort of, I think I've done my job. It's all good. Off we go. I scoped it by maybe state. There's a JSON schema thing that says country or something like that. Then you come
Mm-hmm.
up and you're like, weather in Kincardine. And then Hal's like, fuck, wants to know the weather, wants to know it in Kincardine. That's a goal. A sub goal is in Kincardine. Okay, I've found some help that solves the stuck for getting weather. That looks like what I want. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, what's Kincardine? Okay, Kincardine. It does some background research. Maybe it does a web search as part of its default jitter loop because it thinks
Mm-hmm.
it can solve it internally. It's like, oh, Kincardine's a place. Funny enough, and I hear it's cold, so I could just guess that if I say it's raining and it's -4, there's a great chance that I'll be right. But it's like, well, and that could be like the first feedback. It's like, Dave, I found a weather API, but it only does the UK. I looked up the web and I found that the average temperature for today in Kincardine is -4. So do you want to
Right.
run with that or what?
Yeah.
And then if if it gets higher, that becomes a stuck that gets published, and then Dave says, "Fuck it, man! I would pay one good Scottish pound to have the weather in Kincardine." That goes up
Mm-hmm.
in the stuck loop. Me, the developer, I see that, and I'm like, he just wants suburbs in the UK. Okay, great. So I can now get the weather, but I know that it's only separated by postcode, and I don't have time to deal with fucking all these names, and who even lives in Kincardine anyway? And then, so I make it search by UK postcodes, and then supply the help back that is a different kind of it's a more deeper scoping on the help.
Mm-hmm.
Hal gets a notification of it and is like, oh look, I've got US postcodes. I know the US postcode of Kincardine. That seems like something that could definitely occur within the jitter loop locally. So it finds the postcode, uses the new expanded API to scope by UK postcodes, gets the weather, eventually tells Dave, which, could have been a little bit later. It's like, Dave, by the way, you wanted to know the weather in Kincardine, this is it right now, as of blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, in all of that, it sounds that actually there might not be much utility in splitting out a wider search because that's part of the jitter loop. So the wider search really is, can I resolve this goal or
No,
this
the,
sub goal?
no, no. The local search was about knowing goods. Like
Mm-hmm.
As you solve things using the case we gave, just used the wider search because it didn't have anything else. But over
Mm-hmm.
time, you will build up this local search. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
just, if it's okay, deviate very slightly and talk about a
Mm-hmm.
social network and how that plugs in right there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right? So when I've been imagining the interfaces that I'm about to build for you to enable this testing that was natural language testing, which I feel is essential to being able to release a system to the CRM, to the trucking guys, we must have exhaustively tested it. That
Mm-hmm.
needs to have a UI that you and I can agree on and poke at. You've got a lot of bot work to do in that area to both do pistol
Yeah.
whipping, rule setting, basically telling me what's broken. You and I need to reason through how the fuck we're going to fix it. Like, there's a lot of that kind of stuff to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when I think about how the stuck loop works, a massive milestone that I can see coming for us is a human that has no coding skill being
Mm-hmm.
able to provide help using simply natural language, and that help
Yeah. Yeah.
expanding the capabilities of HAL. I think that's a massive milestone that we should celebrate, because that was the Dreamcatcher in its very,
Yeah.
very most simplest form. Right now, where that starts to get cool is that this search, and I want to have a go at you about this, because I feel like you've been in the conventional world so heavy that you
Mm-hmm.
believe that there is one, effectively in your head, there's one database that you can search. But in the distributed, decentralized world of unreliable things that are sometimes offline, doesn't look like that. And what's available might change depending on the state of your internet connection as well. Like, if there's a net split, your wider library is just simply not there. This database, we hope, will grow to be too large to be contained in any one machine, and
Mm-hmm.
so what's in it is very context dependent. It's very transient. Now,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when you I expect that Dave will find friends. Like, I want to add you as a friend within the Dreamcatcher
Mm-hmm.
and be like, see that guy? Trust that guy. What he
Mm-hmm.
does, take it as what I would have done. This is one of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And what I should be able to see is, when I see this loop going around looking for help, it should favor my friends or my networks first, to be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, has anyone of Tom's friends had this problem? Should
Mm-hmm.
can any
Mm-hmm.
what can we do there? And then if everyone's like, oh yeah, I had that problem, if your Hal says I had that problem and I use this approach, versus some guy I've never met in Pakistan being like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, use this one. I'm like, obviously, obviously choose the one that my friends used, because I don't know that other guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the
Right.
social aspect of it starts to bubble up right here, because you can get things going on like, you and I might have similar problems. You may have spent some time solving some of the stucks to make the system work how you wanted. I see it, and I'm like, that's pretty good, but I can maybe improve it. And then you and I can have a conversation as friends about, why did you want that, and hey, don't you think this is better, and what happened there? And you're like, oh yeah, no, well, I wanted this thing, and then this other thing, and then life got in the way, and I didn't get to it, and blah blah blah. And so we can start
Yeah.
actually a human connection around the help and the stuck and the goal, and we can find each other, because the search in stuck space meant that we had the same problem by vector embedding nearness. The clustering of our goals across space and fucking time have led us to the same fucking area in this one massive almighty vector space. That's
So
a social network.
is a way of doing this then? If I understand you correctly, this stuck library seems to be problematic. The jitter loop. is about taking a goal, deconstructing the goals, see if you can fix it, and you can fix it or you can't fix it. If you can't fix it, it's stuck. If you can fix it, it's part of a JIT response. The wider search really is a graph of jitter loops in the social network way you're saying that there.
No.
So
The wider search is goals. The goal is the unit of search.
yes, but what I'm saying is the jitter loop is the place where goals go to be deconstructed
Yep.
and see if you can or can't solve that sub goal.
Correct. And right. So within the walk for helps to meet goals, that is where you can find your friends, or you can favor your friends, or you can use what your friends have done, or you can make friends even. Because if me and one of my buddies is stuck on the same thing, like, can you imagine that feeling, like someone you've never met for 10 years, and then you both end up looking at the same stuck, and you're like, oh fuck, and then you see this one guy, right? And you're like, who the fuck is that guy? And you meet him and you're like, hey, you remember we had this issue back at uni? We used to complain about this thing, and now I finally tried to solve it, and now here I am. And he's like, yeah, me too. How you
Yeah.
been?
Or it was like, yeah, I solved it years ago, man.
Yeah,
Here it is.
right? And it's like when you find that random guy on Stack Overflow who feels like the only other guy in the world that feels your pain. But then he's disappeared, and you're like, where the fuck is that user who said he had the same problem as me? And now what? Right? And then, but this is like live social interaction based on your problems, based on your goals, and the problems you had in the pursuit of those goals.
I like this. I like this a lot.
Right? What clearer way to find comrades than
Yeah.
your high frequency, highly atomized goals? Finding multiple overlaps of goals between a person says that you're probably friends. You have no way to see that right now. Intent is the thing that binds humans together. Hunting packs. This is why we're friends. We hunt the same things.
I need a whiteboard. Isn't done. Yeah. Oh, I need to switch this off. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, so what we're talking about here is we've got the Dave and Hal team. And there is a goal. I'm going to run roughshod over our terminology for just 1 second. We've got a goal, and then we've got the, this is not the right word, but the solution finder for a goal. And that goal is broken up into sub-goal, and then the role of solution finder saying, I can do that, I can do that, I can do this.
Right?
So the first step is, okay, this sub-goal, let's call it sub-goal X, because it's unknown,
Yep.
can be set to perhaps, let's call it mate, it also has a HAL, sub-goal X, it's like, hey dude, have you any idea? And he goes, well, funnily enough, my solution finder worked on that last week. and solved it. Therefore, you can go, yep, that's good, this is good, and now this is good. So instead of the library, I'll bring the library up again. Instead of the stuck library here, what you're talking about, I think is a more powerful way of doing it is you've got a graph of mates.
You do and you don't, but that isn't what I mean. So let me have a crack at the board here.
Yeah, go for it. I think you're onto something here because that stuck libraries did feel like how the hell are we going to index? And adjust it. Ultimately, we have no control over, and there is no index because some of it can be offline, etc.
Yeah. The solution finder is the jitter loop.
Yep. These are different words, so we didn't pollute the.
So we didn't have a shared understanding. Is that why?
No, because if we use jitter, then that comes with a whole bunch of baggage about what we think is jitter.
Okay, so you had blah 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 blah. Go 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 go. You were like, yep, and then you're like, nah, buddy.
Yeah.
So that is the point when a goal becomes a stuck.
Yes. Well, that sub goal is a stuck. It's like
a goal or a sub goal. It's like
they're the same.
Yeah.
They're the same.
Yeah, okay, so now you are stuck. Then what happens is you go vector search.
And what you're saying is that vector search is amongst your mates.
No. Well, yes and no. The vector search is in a decentralized web space. So it sort of favors availability, who's nearby. There's like reputation systems come into play. It can be an arbitrarily complex ranking mechanism, but one of those ranking mechanisms is ordered by mates. So if you're presented with, like, 100 options and you're looking for a way to narrow down what you want to use first, you could do like, okay, which ones cost the most, which ones have the most users, and then if that's still not really good, you're like, well, which ones do my friends use, or if there's multiple ones that seem good, you're like when I look at NPM, I would love to know which ones Ben uses, because I can't see the packages that Ben favors and likes, because I know that if he's using it, he's looked at it thoroughly and he trusts it, and that should be fed forwards to me somehow, because I deserve that, and I will reciprocate with the same, right? And so it's really just saying that there's a list of mates that helps in the ranking of it. But
so these are sources and weights.
Sources and weights, yeah. So the cluster search is what's important, and the cluster search is why I'm getting excited about goals being stucks, because that lets you cluster search. And once you can cluster search, then you can find the help that is related to each one. But you can also find the people. Like, even if we ignore the mates list, and let's say I select this one over here that none of my mates have come across, I still know the person that's associated with that. If they've chosen to expose that information, I can find a new friend, because my stucks often...
Right. It's a bit like when you're, well, certainly when I'm doing any kind of coding, which I try to avoid, but Stack Overflow is the place I'd go usually.
Yep. And you see a common theme, right? You see people that you recognize the name of, and you're like, oh, this guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like that too, right? And then, but there's also this two-way system where there's the thanker, And so that guy that you often see on Stack Overflow also knows that you regularly consume his helps. So now there's this bond. But that's not there in Stack Overflow. It's most of the time people just read it and then fuck off. You're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you lost the biggest part of the participation there. But here it's like, this forms a social network of people with the same problem. As they say, a friend in need is a friend indeed. And that's a stronger bond than, do you want to look at my cat photos, or do you want me to take little snapshots at the high points of my life and make you think that that's my life every day? Do you want to do that? Like, this is actually get something done, man.
You're improving your life, aren't you?
Yeah, this is a hunting pack, and it can be so broad. It can be like, my goal is to lose weight. Hal cheekily sniggers and then lists a bunch of sub-goals that you have. Some of those goals, you're going to find some fatty friends or some friends that want to lose fat are going to be in that list because of the clustering. It's about turning the problem space into vector space and then finding clusterings around it. That's the social network. I want to know who has the same fucking problem as me. I want to know where there's big clusters of problems with people who have money. I want to know where the problems are, and goaling is the unit by which to map out problem space so that problems can find solutions.
Yes, I agree. And solutions can be advertised in the same way. Take investment. My problem is I've got 100 grand in the bank.
Right. So you're like, blah, 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 stuck. And then,
Yeah, and then you come back going, hey, you've got something in my search space. My goal is to spend that 100 grand on shoes. And
right.
someone's trying to design shoes. It's like, yeah, okay. Right, there's a link there.
Right. So in Goalspace, you've found that you're sort of circling in the same area in this multi-dimensional space.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And it's the reduction down to purity of your goals that allows you to get to the vector space cleanly without completely missing it like you do right now, because Dave never asks pure questions. Dave asks these convoluted as fuck XY problem style things, and Dave doesn't really know enough about his problems to ask them properly. But Hal does and can break it down the goaling. And so basically the quality of the goaling impacts heavily the quality of the whole system, I believe. More stronger. The only thing that affects the system stronger is the quality of the LLM that comes out. But even then, I'm not sure if it isn't surpassed by the importance of getting goaling right.
Yeah, okay, I agree. So in the previous diagram, I'll just bring that up briefly.
Yeah.
This stock library we can remove and put in a vector space of search based on weights and the likelihood that a sub goal, let's say something that's been broken down from an original request, is going to be solved.
So I think a cleaner way to talk about that is atomic goal similarity. Because you can only break down a goal so far, and then you get to the atoms of the goal. Everything above the atoms is compounds, and once you do vector space similarity search of atomic goals, that's where you find ways to walk back up the tree or to find similarities with other people. That's where your social network begins. That's where your solutions come from, because when you find close atomic goals, you can find the help that solved them, if anything.
Okay. So how I would redraw this then is the jitter loop is pretty much unchanged. It's there to take a goal and to divide it into sub goals, search for solutions.
It's there to atomize it. It's there to atomize the goals.
Yeah. This should be replaced by the vector space of search, which you described.
Yep.
And some of them might come back trivially. Some of them might come back saying, nobody in this vector space has ever thought of this before, and we have no fucking idea. In which case, it's the jitter loop that kicks off the stuck loop.
Mm-hmm.
The stuck loop is there as it's a bit like the court. It just considers the goal that's been given, and says, "Hey, anyone know how to resolve this?" Because
yeah, and there's a combination of my apologies. Carry on, I cut you off.
Oh no, don't worry. We're well past that.
So the stuck loop is I like to imagine that we'll have some deeper generative AI that tries to resolve it itself, but ultimately we're saying this is open to the whole world. Please, can someone come and solve it? It could be solved as simply as someone turning up and just working with the automated solver to give it some hints as to what it might want to try to get some progress. That is the key. You can turn up to the social network, look at the problems of your friends, look at the problems of people with money, look at all these different weighting things depending on what you get your kicks out of. Look at geographically restricted problems that happen in a hurricane area that you happen to have some affiliation with, whatever. You can look at stucks and you can start solving stucks in natural language. I think that humans will be very good at this task.
Yes, I agree. The interesting thing is, okay, so we've got goals, and stucks are defined as goals that can't be met by the search of the vector space and search of the local space. That's a stuck. Then that gets put out there. Once that stuck turns into a help,
once that stuck receives help, which doesn't really change the stuck, except it now has help attached to it. The stuck has been helped.
Yes, and that help might be enough to say the thing you're trying to do. We can do this. The interesting thing about that is there are end devs or AI nodes that have contributed to moving this stuck along. That gets put into the vector space now, because it's like, hey, this dude solved this thing that none of my mates could do.
That's right.
Or none of my vector space could figure out.
That's right. And so now a part of the thanker holds this record of a connection you have with someone you previously didn't, and they a connection with you as the target of your thanks.
Right, and now solve something you didn't do, and now he's part of the vector space.
That's right, and now he's on your your dynamically generated friends list. Right?
Yeah.
He's on your Christmas list, effectively. He's on your thanks list.
Yeah, because he's been useful.
Right. And even if you choose to never fucking pay him, this is a powerful, powerful thing, because you're like, oh, that guy, thank you, that guy.
Yeah.
What can I do for it elicits gratitude, because the machines that we use today are so cold that you can't see the provenance.
The beautiful thing about this is the social network.
The social network.
This guy has helped you solve a stuck. Why is he thinking about this problem space?
Right.
It's probably because you're also working in the same problem space.
And then you can also see what other stucks he has. Maybe you can pay him back by solving one of his. Who knows?
Well, that's exactly it. So when if you kind of mirror this entire thing over to Narnia, and now we've got a new guy who's helped on this stuck, his jitter loop. He's trying to do something, and there's an overlap, right? There's obviously an overlap because he's being able to help with a stuck of a goal that you're trying to meet. Why on earth could he help with that? It's probably because he's doing something else wider in his own space, that perhaps something that you've done can help in reciprocal.
Absolutely. And so this is where you can turn the whole exercise into something extraordinarily social that can elicit a human bond that is maybe one of the most powerful, certainly one of the nicest I know of, which is genuine, unadulterated gratitude. And
Yeah.
how can you have gratitude without provenance?
Yes. Yes.
But
Yeah.
here we have this system that can just by its running, you can be aware of the motherfucking army of people that made it possible for you to find out if you need an umbrella in Kincardine today.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And some dude is been working for his entire life on designing a better umbrella.
A Kincardine special umbrella. But it's I think that I would get a kick out of looking at my friends' network and seeing who had stucks that I thought I could solve for them, and then I'd just go fix them, and I'd be like, mate, that was awesome. Let me buy you a drink. Like,
Yeah.
that's worth more than money to a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
So, um, this I think needs completely reworded into a vector space, search space, based around a social network graph
Yeah.
sort of thing. And that graph is in uh, the the kind of the local solvable jitter loops of each thing. I can solve this. I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy with this. I'm happy with this. So you search the graph.
Oops.
Hey, yeah,
There we
the
go.
connection just dropped me on the floor there.
Oopsie.
Don't know why.
All right, so this is
Sure.
exciting. This is really exciting because it starts to feel like we knew there was a social network in there somewhere, but we didn't quite know what it was going to
Yeah,
rally around.
right.
And
We've
in
been
the
talking about that for years, isn't it?
forever, yeah,
The last social network that's not been written yet.
because
The innovation network.
it's gonna rally around vector space, not this explicit connection between people that is laborious and weighted with all sorts of awkwardness. It's just pure
Yeah,
problem space.
yeah, yeah. Goalspace.
Goal space, yeah.
Yeah,
Goal oriented, a goal oriented social network. And you swarm around common goals and you work together to collaborate to massage or dissolve the stucks that are in the way of those goals. Like, that's
yeah,
a team, dude.
yeah.
Team human.
That's this is really fucking cool. Um, can I get I'm going to be boring for a second and ask for some definitions.
Sure.
Here's the starter for 10. So you got a goal. The goal is potentially infinitely divisible depending on what the goal is.
It is not infinitely divisible. No goal is infinitely divisible.
Okay, let's take a really hard example then. Right, I want.
I'll agree with you that it's indeterminately divisible, such as if you
Okay,
say
all right,
if you
right,
say retake the Falklands. I know for a
yeah,
fact that there's a countable number of goals in there, no matter what path you take, but I don't know what that number is. but it is
Okay.
not
All right.
infinite.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. But the important point, given your excellent challenge
I
there,
do not like the word
is
subgoal. I think that it's atomic goal.
but we don't know what atomic is. Okay. Let me recognize your challenge there, and goes all the way down. We don't know how.
Yeah, but at some point it's going to hit atomic, and atomic is the goal. He can't break it down anymore.
Right. Okay.
So it's just as deep as you can see, because your knowledge may permit further.
Okay. So that's a practical limit in that it's like.
It's more than a
Yeah.
practical. It's a logical limit. It is dependent. It is subjective on what you can perceive right now, and it is subjective or dependent on the state of the wider network. But the fact that it has atomic properties, which means I don't know how to divide it any further, that's what makes it
That's
atomic.
yeah. That's the important thing. But the interesting thing is, an atomic goal may actually simply change into a goal if there's new information.
Correct. Or it may dissolve and roll up higher if there's new information.
Correct. Correct.
Yep.
So okay, so it goes all the way down to atomic, and atomic is I have no idea how how it comes back or
Yeah,
the outcome.
it's met the
I
simplicity
can't do it.
requirements, the descriptions requirements. It's met a bunch of checks that make it atomic and make it pure, make it
Right.
succinct. All
Yes.
those nice things about a piece of text that you look at and you're like, that is a good goal.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
also has a bunch of context attached to it, which is what the fuck Dave was trying to do when he did it. But ultimately, you've broken down that is a potentially limitless search space, but you've broken it down into something that has limits and can now be compared and searched amongst peers.
Yes. Yes. Right. The important thing is there's no material difference other than Dave's original intent. This goal is a goal. This goal is a goal. This goal is a goal. So it's recursive all the way down to the point where you hit rock bottom.
Right. And
It's like
in
we can't go
honestly, in
further.
practice, that may not be that big, really. But anyway, this is the
Yeah.
point. You were
Yeah.
just trying to get some names. There's a goal. Goals
Yeah.
are compounded of arbitrarily many goals within them, and
So
ultimately they bottom out at atomic goals, which cannot be divided any further based on what the knowledge we have on hand.
correct. Correct. Now we've
Okay.
got helps. Now helps solves a goal. It's a put it down the nested thing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
therefore, because it's recursive,
Yep.
multiple helps
Yep.
can be put together in order to solve the top level goal.
Yep. That sounds cool. Some of those helps might be dynamically generated within the jitter loop using Hal's intelligence.
Yeah, yeah, but yes, it doesn't matter where it comes from. Help. Goal is asking a question. Well, is stating something that needs to be done, and help says I can do that.
Yep.
And so, if you had help for each of the goals all the way up, then you've got a basket full of helps, which at the top level can solve the thing that Dave was asking for in a shit way.
Correct. Which you could
Um,
shorten down to say just the thing that Dave was asking for, because that's how Dave is.
yeah. There is also the special case of a goal. I've done it. That's probably I shouldn't have done the atomic goal there. Let's choose this one because it doesn't really matter. There is no help for this.
Yep.
And therefore,
you can only decide that there's no help for an atomic goal.
Yes, but you can inherit the fact that a goal. Yes, I agree. Okay. Yeah. Go on, I'm rolling with you on this. Okay.
Hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm rolling. Don't you worry.
So say if we got this situation where we've got this nested goal thing. So this one, there's no help.
Yep.
And no help, I think, is referred to as a stuck.
Correct. An atomic goal with no help is a stuck.
Right. And so you could have this situation where you've got this. So you've got this goal here relies on
Yep.
Two atomic goals. I've gone to
Yep.
one nested,
Yep.
but you know that.
Yep.
Two nested atomics. One, there's no help.
Yep.
So it's stuck. One, there is help. It's help. And
Yep.
so the partial, I don't know what we call that, a partial solution, which could still be useful. But there's no help for this part, and there is help for that part.
Correct.
And so we can give a half-arsed answer all the way up.
Yeah.
There's help here, help all the way up, help here.
Yeah,
all the way
it's
up.
like it's half-assed, but we know that it's falling short.
Right. So in terms of definitions, a stuck is the mirror image of a help, because they're both looking at atomic goals.
A stuck is the absence of help. It's a special case. It's the null help.
Yeah.
A stuck is the null help.
Yeah, it's the flip side. It's null help. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at that point, we go into, well, how do we turn a stuck into a help?
Right. And we can black box that because that's the stuck loop, and we can black box that because that has many, 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 many solutions. But ultimately, it all amounts to the same thing, which is to get some help.
Right. So this is really useful.
This is incredible.
So we've got three, only three definitions in order to produce this. Goals all the way down, hierarchy goals, then base rock, atomic goal.
Yep.
And it's like, can do that, stuck, or can do that, help. Helps could be conglomerations of helps as well.
Oh yeah, correct. Yeah. There's many. There can be many different helps for any given atomic goal.
Yeah. Well, yes,
but not just nested, but there can be parallel helps of varying degrees of suitability.
Yep. And so some kind of assessment is due, but it's like, well, there's a number of ways we can solve this, or there is a way that we can solve this by using other helps that we know.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that can't be nested is a stuck.
Nested?
Yeah, there's no idea here about stuck and a sub-stuck and stuck's all the way down.
No,
stuck is just
stuck is a stuck.
Yeah, good.
So could you then say that this goal could have a stuck associated with it?
Oh, sure, yeah. Because at any point, no, you can't. Because
well, you might though. You might, because just because you atomize down here, someone might only be able to solve at this level, which would mean that all these ones, whilst they're unsolved, for this particular context, you only need to go 3 deep 1, 2, 3. If you can solve it here, you can ditch all the rest.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of inherent in it,
Right.
isn't it?
So basically,
So, for example,
a stuck does not belong to an atomic goal. A stuck belongs to any unresolved goal. But in this case, with the nesting, which is a great example, where you've got one nesting path that has help and another nesting path that is stuck, there would be no point making a stuck for this one necessarily, because it's sort of
right. So the rule is for the jitterbot is to fragment the goal
yeah,
only so far as you find help for a particular goal, and once that, don't look any further.
yeah. Don't. What's the point? Like,
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
okay, done.
yeah.
Next.
So exactly. So you fragment minimally in order to get helps. If you keep on fragmenting, no help yet. Ignore this bit for this example. No help yet. Fuck, I can't fragment any further. I'm stuck.
Like,
I
fuck,
tried, man. I tried.
fuck, I'm stuck.
I think that's a really, really sweet, parsimonious way of just to describe basically everything we're trying to do here.
Every time you say
Um,
parsimonious, all I can think of is parsimons.
I don't know what parsimon is.
It's like a fruit. It's this thing that is like
Never
a.
heard of parsimon.
You've never heard
It's
of a
some
parsimon?
weird fucking New Zealand fruit. I
Yeah.
don't know. I've never heard of parsimon. I've never heard of that word. It's no. This is the least amount of effort. Uh, so the jitter is trying to solve a
It's
goal with the least
minimal,
amount.
very, very minimal.
Yeah. So it's like, go. Can I? Is there a help that solves this goal directly? No. Okay. So let me fragment it. Are there helps that solve that second level goal directly? No. Shit. Gonna have to fragment it down again. Is there helps that solve these sub goals?
Yep,
Yes. Okay. So now we back up.
yep,
Is that and back up all the way? So
right. And then
um,
part of the search is as soon as you've got this atomic goal, you can now enter Goalspace, because you've got your atomic goal, you vectorize it,
hmm.
and now you're in Goalspace and you search for nearness.
Oh, you mean right? So, yeah. Do you need to wait for? If we were saying that you need, can you solve this directly? No. Okay, so I'm going to sub divide this. You should be looking in goal space at each division.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
Goalspace is beautiful. It's you can
yeah,
fucking search it for anything you like. I mean, you'll get better results the more atomic you go, but you can get a
yeah,
result anywhere.
exactly. So you don't have to wait for getting down to atomic goal to
No,
search for goal space. It's basically you search it recursively.
yeah,
Can you do this goal? No. Okay. Search goal space for these goals. No, doesn't work. Search goal space for these goals. Yes. Help, 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 help. Great. That's solved. That's solved. That's solved. Boom. Happy. And you never get down to the stuck. You only get down to stuck if you get down to this atomic thing and going, guys, nobody knows how to do this. Shit. Okay. Boom. Now we got stuck. The stuck goes into the stuck loop. The stuck loop generates a help,
yep,
and the help is part
yep. And the help
because of the vector
ultimately
space.
will trigger for anybody who had who was nearby in vector space with an atomic goal.
Well, yeah, but also you're pulling in the guy who's solved it. You might have been nowhere close to your vector
Yeah, yeah,
space.
yeah. And I guess now
Not
that
the
there's a
stuck.
friends list that gets built in the same way that we wanted to make an app store that wasn't categorized by humans, it was categorized by some sort of algorithm. You can now make a friends list that categorizes by closeness in goal space, so that it would favor searching you first next time in this area. You're
Oh
like, oh,
yeah,
go try find things that this other guy did, because often he has help
yeah,
that's
and
related.
yeah, and he's working the same area,
Yeah,
and he gets it,
yeah.
and he solved it,
And now
and
in the decentralized space, you would end
mm-hmm,
up making a strong affinity to the servers that host his content because of that friends list that you've made. You'd try to keep
mm-hmm,
that link alive because the link had a higher utility than other ones that were dead, relatively speaking. And so
yeah,
your physical connections at the network topology layer start to mirror your Goalspace connections because
yeah.
that's the content you're interested in. You host his helps and you search for his goals and his helps and then sort of redistribute them when people query them.
It's this really cool way of thinking about it, because essentially, if you take a step up, what you're going to get is clusters of people who are trying to solve the same sort of
That's right,
thing in
man. And
multiple formats,
they'd look
but
like
not
a little
exactly.
campfire of people all standing
Yeah,
around poking at this thing different ways, and some of them you'd be like, well, that was clever. You know,
yeah.
like
When you
it's
get stuff popping in, it's like,
right.
hey, here you. Oh, I solved Stux for
Right, right,
one of
right.
the guys'
And now, if you
hyperspace and
think
stuff
about
like
it, if you think about the innovation network of the world as it is that right now, but it's degraded
that. But
in that it's got the
it's
lights
sneaker
off.
bending.
It's sort of
Yeah,
right. You can
yeah,
this whole model is happening right now, but it's slow. And then use that as a thought experiment to imagine what artificial general intelligence looks like, and AGI starts to look stupid because it's not going to turn up to goal space and then wipe the whole thing out in one day. It's just not. It's
no, it's
gonna,
not, is it?
it's gonna actually increase goal space so that goal space becomes more populous.
The thing is, you're absolutely right, because the thing that general intelligence cannot do is this bit, because that's the
It's
point where
funny.
we get into
It can't
chaos,
be
right?
stupid. It
And
can't.
so it can automate all this stuff.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's all
All it
great.
will
Crack
do
on,
is
and
increase
then move.
the jitter loop will have less
Yeah,
cause to go out, but
yeah.
all that'll happen is the humans will use the jitter loop to do more and more harder things until you're just always at the edge of intelligence, and poor
Well,
old Hal is always coming up short.
by definition, is always short by this
Yeah,
sucker.
because we'll just
Always.
keep on fucking going and hit the hard problems and just keep going. That's just who we are.
Yeah, and even if you get AIs uh, solving stocks, that's fine. But the fact that there is always going to be ahead of the wavefront of all this stuff coming through that can't be solved,
Yeah,
then they're always going to be on the back foot,
right.
even slightly.
All right, I'm just going to
Okay,
take this
all right.
small, brief moment of clarity for us to share a picture of a passerman.
I've never seen that. What even is that? It looks like a tiny pumpkin.
Yeah, it's sweet though. It's got a lot of sugar in it.
Uh,
Yeah.
tomato man. Where do these things grow then?
Well, let's see.
It's not often that you see a fruit that you've never heard of.
China produced 75% of the world total.
Okay. I have never seen one of these things. A couple hundred years ago, pineapples used to be rented out. It's a random fact. You know that?
Didn't know that.
So pineapples, because they were incredibly difficult to grow, it took 2 3 years. A single plant produced one pineapple, and then you had to get it back to Europe largely, which is where they were seen as this exotic fruit. They were incredibly expensive, and so you had guys that bought pineapples and they rent it out for a dinner, as long as you didn't eat it. Uh, then the next night they rent out your pineapple for another one, and you looked richer than you actually were. So lots
Okay.
of people knew what a pineapple looked like, but never tasted it.
All right. So here's your answer to your question: where they grow.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's 3.21 million tons of a fruit I'd never heard of. Look at this lady down here. She seems to be like fucking knee deep in them. What's going on there? She's got all the parsimons. She's not ever
Would you
fucking talking
say
on the
that
phone. And
she was parsimonious?
I see where you came from there.
All right, so
Right.
we've got this. We've managed to reduce down the number
Lovely.
of components significantly.
226.
Uh,
226.
yep.
Yes. Can I
Yeah.
just have a quick break?
Sure.
Be back in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. See you, man.
We could maybe do a DHT in vector space by making the node key be the average of all the vectors that node holds, allowing for lookup. Um, this vector space idea is pretty cool because we can possibly do things like make a sort of some of these decentralized structures like dynamic or distributed hash tables, which are the
Yeah,
reason why torrents are so hard to knock offline. You
yeah,
could possibly make a very large distributed goal space table that was
yeah,
sort of, you could walk it and crawl it, and it, because it's so big, it's effectively infinite, and it should be so big that nobody can hold it. And
yeah.
so,
Because
yeah, you
yeah,
want this decentralized structure to be the way that you discover it. And that, remember we spoke a lot about things like, what pops into your inbox, and then there's these suggestions, and how do I go from rock solid hash based blockchain space into this sort of approximate hint connection that you need? And I think the answer is
yeah,
by traversing through Goalspace, because once you've used Goalspace to find everyone, then you can engage in blockchain based interactions. But
yes, yeah,
Goalspace,
yeah.
why I love Goalspace is it's very flat. It's like we've all arrived at the same fucking place, and there's no other place in the system that you ever need to do seeking of that nature.
Yes, and I like your analogy to torrents.
Right.
So you effectively um, you're there and you're advertising your stocks. You might be offline for a bit, in which case the vector space
Yeah.
doesn't have access to what you've done. Then you come back
Right, but
online,
because of the nature
solve
of
this.
peers, people who are close to you in vector space would have consumed your goals and your helps in order to generate their own jitters, and so they would remake those available to other people
Right,
that needed them,
right,
just like a
right.
torrent.
Yeah, that torrent analogy is really good, isn't it?
Yeah, but the torrents work in
Um,
hash space, and the DHT of the torrent works in hash space. We need the torrent version of Goalspace, and we need a DHT structure that works in Goalspace too.
yeah.
Do you want me to quickly describe a DHT?
Yes, please.
Okay, so a DHT is called a distributed hash table, and its key speciality is that it says, okay, all these torrents have a hash. It's a I think it's a like a 160-bit hash from memory, some shit like that. And then
Uh,
the question is, how do if the trackers got knocked offline, how would I find other people that have this torrent? That's the question that the DHT answers. And so
yeah.
the trick that it does to do that is that it makes each computer generate a key that uniquely identifies it within the hash space. So it makes a hash for a node.
Uh-huh.
And then the rule is very simple. In one of the most popular hash table implementations, Kademlia, you take the hash of the node, and it's your duty to store hashes of torrents that are close to you in hash space. And it's
Uh-huh.
not storing the torrent, it's storing the peers. Like, how do I connect to this guy? And so
Uh-huh.
the sequence is, if I'm like, I have a torrent, what do I do? First, you find some peers, any peers. Then you find their node keys. Then you find which one is closest to the torrent hash I look to. Oh, this guy. Okay, go to that guy. Be like, hey, give me either this torrent or the next 10 people you know about that are close in hash space to this torrent. And you
Right,
walk
right, right.
you walk around like that, and it's incredibly useful, and it's been impossible to knock offline because
Mm.
it's always there, and you can eventually find someone who has the actual torrent that you're looking for, because each step you do, you're getting closer and closer and closer. It seems very resilient against poisoning, false information. It's a fantastic device, and I'm sure that there's one in there that can be constructed for vector space in the same way.
It sounds exactly the same. Yeah, that search with proximity in the search space.
Yeah, where
Exactly.
the computer equipment is now proximal to the goal.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that works. That
Mm.
works really well. Okay, so I've got maybe what time is it? Probably got another 15 minutes,
Yeah,
something like
same.
that. So in this diagram, this is being replaced with the torrent stroke vector space search of proximity of friends, which
Yep.
are updated based on um, your effectively your what you're trying to do, your kind of research, I guess, and the so I'll need to think about that in terms of JSON and so on, exactly what that looks like. I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand. What is this thing?
Oh, that's my mouse.
Oh, right. I was wondering. Okay, so now in the base case where there is no vector space, because it seems like for the CRM, what we want to do is to get the jitter loop up and get a stuck loop up in order to produce jitters based on goals, and the helps are locally stored as the first kind of loop
Mm-hmm.
around this
Mm-hmm.
in order to create the CRM. So the key to that is guardians and tests to make it useful and trustworthy. And we've got the ruler to make it useful to Dave and so on. But this part of it seems to be the first thing to do. The vector space is once we've got user number one, what we really need is user number two,
Yep.
and we can construct one of those in order to see how this vector space comes out. The quote loop remains the same, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Yep.
The thanker remains the same. Sorry, that.
Mm.
I did. Sorry again. Thanker does not release it.
Thanker. The thanker gives thanks to help, and it gives thanks in advance to stucks.
What was the thank in advance?
Thanks in advance says that, God damn it, I would use this help if it was there, but I've only got the null help, which is the stuck. So
Yeah.
thanks in advance, whoever changes this. So it indicates demand for a particular stuck.
All right. Oh yeah. Okay. So unmet demand is thanks in advance.
Yeah. And I think I quite like that way of describing it because everyone understands thanks and thanks in advance.
Yeah.
They're very simple terms that accurately describe what we're trying to do there, and they're not polluted with things like payment or debt or owe or things like that. It's like, well, it is thanks, and the payment is just a form of thanks or a superset, payment is a subset of all the ways that you can be thankful.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And in this vector space, those thanks may even be simple reinforcement of weightings.
Yeah, search weightings, like
Yeah.
even that's
Yeah.
valuable. That's a form of value to say thanks with some data that cost you a small sum to produce and publish. That's useful. Thank you.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. A thanks is the same as a thumbs up
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
a social.
yeah. Exactly, yeah. Fuck, this
Okay.
is
Good.
strong, dude. This is really, really
It
fucking coming together.
really is, isn't it?
And it's crazy.
Uh,
Like, because it turns out the Dreamcatcher is actually this one application where the majority of which happens in someone's fucking browser. And then turns out the most important part of the goal of the whole Dreamcatcher was goaling.
yeah.
Not what I
I
would have
love
picked.
I love goaling, but goaling only really came in understanding what the Dave's intent is if you get some way of concierging that
Yeah.
random stream of consciousness, it's like, oh, okay, so here's what
Chaperoning
it looks like.
Dave, making
Yeah,
Dave reasonable,
yeah. Then as soon as
so
you
that
get it into
Hal
gold
doesn't go
space,
insane.
yeah, yeah. But there's a trigger here. As soon as you get into gold space, it's like, okay,
Right.
now we've got
And
we've got
I love this model of Dave and Hal. Like, that's
yeah,
such a rich way to just think about the whole thing.
yeah, yes, exactly. Okay, so I'll redraw this. I'm gonna have to have other conversations about because my goal right now is to get you JSON descriptions of
Yeah.
interactions.
Yeah, but that can
Uh,
just be like a list of properties, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
But
more the
the
fact that I need the common understanding with you what these objects are, and that we're beyond doubt certain that they are the same object that we're talking about.
yeah,
I just don't want to have to implement the system multiple times.
yeah. The we'll just be certain of that. Yeah, uh,
And another thing that I'm
so
thrilled
where's the
about
whiteboard?
is the fact that if you think
Oh,
of
you
this,
this is
sorry,
yours. This is sorry, I was putting the whiteboard up, but this is your
oh, I can
system.
turn it off here.
Yeah. Yeah, I love these definitions.
That's simple. It
Those,
cuts out a lot of problem.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I cut you off there.
I love the fact that we can now think of this whole thing as a social network that is goal oriented. We can model the existing world and the existing innovation rate and innovation process as a degraded form of this ideal situation. And most of all, above all else, I'm thankful that we can imagine the impact of AGI upon such a playing field. And it is
Mm-hmm.
actually almost non existent.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the
It's,
lights are brighter. But
it's the
we,
accelerant.
yeah, with GPT-4, we have enough to turn on all the lights to enable this ideal model, which will be vastly superior to the current dark sneakernet models. And then if you have AGI, all that happens is the components all the same, but the lights just got brighter, and we can do more. We can go further faster. That's all,
Yeah,
and that makes me
yeah,
feel pretty safe because it kills the whole is AGI just going to wipe out our effort, and it's like no, it's
yeah.
really
No,
not.
it's
Like it's
because of this little baby here. It's like,
yeah, we will find
as
ways
always,
to
going to
reach the
be.
limit of AGI every time, guaranteed.
Yeah, that could be n, and this is
Yeah.
always n plus one.
Yeah, go Team Human. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Okay. Cool.
All
All
right,
right.
well, that's fucking thorough,
Happy with
man.
that.
That is thorough.
Yeah.
Like, that is so minimal. That is
Yeah.
fabulously minimal.
I like this a lot. Right.
Okay,
Parish Notices, having a date night out tonight,
okay. I'll stop the
which
recording
means
so that you don't get it.